Hey guys, this is Ben with the Big Idea Project again. Just conducting my first interview-ish. We're just going to kind of talk things out and just record it. And you guys will see it on the YouTube channel. So this is my friend David.
Hey, I'm David.
And David, like me, was a really close friend of Brad's. And along as me, he was really affected by all this. So we were just going to kind of talk it out and just talk about the day before and like the day that it happened and just kind of how we've been since. So just kind of to start out, so like the day before, it was the first day of school, junior year. I didn't talk to Brad too much. He was in my web design class. At that point, we were like kicking around the idea of designing an app for iPhone and stuff, but it was not, like, you know, we just were not talented by any means about it. We were like looking into how to do the code and all that stuff because, you know, it's crazy complicated, but we never did too much with it, so we were just kind of kicking around the idea in web design and talking about it. Other than that, that was pretty much my only interaction with Brad, because we were going to go to lunch. As I remember, we were going to go to lunch, and he was down there, and he ended up saying he had to do some other stuff, so we went to lunch without him, and then he called us seeing where we were kind of halfway through, but we were away from the school, so we couldn't catch up with him. But other than that, I just talked to him in the hall a few times. So what about you? Because I know you guys were really close at that point. Like, you guys were hanging out like every day.
Yeah, we like hung out like every day, like almost every day over the summer. And then that day for school, I was going to be his carpool that year until he got his license, which was in October. And so I was with Reese Harrell, and I picked him up from his house. And we were just kind of like, are we really doing this again? Like, school?
Yeah.
You know, bummed out about it. And so then we, like, get to school. I don't really remember too much.
Oh, yeah, I talked to you guys the first day of school. I came down to talk to you guys that morning. We were just like, it was good catching up because I didn't really talk to you guys too much because I just had a busy summer. I only hung out with you guys a few times. So, yeah, I remember talking to you guys that morning, like right when you got there.
Yeah, I don't remember what we did when we got there. I forgot. But then I didn't see him until after school, and that day I was feeling like sick, like I was getting sick, and so I told him I wasn't going to hang out right after school. I was going to go home and rest, and so I gave him a ride home, and then I went back over to his house at like 6 o'clock, and he had just finished hanging out with other people. I don't remember.
Don't worry about it.
He hung out with, he was hanging out with other friends, and then when I hung out with him, he just seemed quiet. Like, something was bugging him, and he was talking to me about it, but
Was he not very specific about talking to you about it, or was he?
No, he told me what he was upset about, but it didn't seem that dramatic or super severe that it didn't show too much concern. And so
I can completely understand that,
yeah.
You know, everyone's upset sometimes, isn't
it? I remember when we were at his house and he was getting school supplies, him and his sister got in a fight, and I remember the last time Hannah saw him, Brad, like, hit Hannah, because Hannah was, like, sitting on his school supplies, and so, I feel bad for Hannah about that.
Yeah, jeez, I knew nothing about that.
Because he was still getting school supplies, but then when we got in my car, came over here, didn't really do anything, and then we called it a night at, like, 8 or so, and then later that night, I just got phone calls asking where he was, and I thought he was going on a night walk like he usually did. So for me that morning after I was in a really big rush to school, and I didn't have Brad's mom's number at the time, so she did call, and I was gonna text it or call it saying like, hey, I just got a call from this number, like, you know, who is this? But it was just a mad rush to school, and it was Brad's mom looking for Brad at that time, and then pretty much, for me, it's just pretty much kind of a normal day, and then I was in math, and it was kind of, I don't remember how far into math, but I was just like sitting with Josh, and then I just got called down to the counselor. And just like that whole thing was like really weird because the counselor was like, she was new. I'm pretty sure this was like her first. Did you have Duffy? Who was your teacher?
It wasn't.
I have Duffy now. The thing is for the H's, or who do you have?
I have Miss Shafter.
Oh, okay. Like for us, like the H's or whatever, they've changed. Like I've had a new counselor every year, pretty much. Miss Duffy stayed the longest, but there was a new one in, and it was I kind of talked to her once about my schedule a little bit, and then we were walking, and someone else that knew Brad, just still not gonna really disclose names. Just, someone else that knew Brad was like, Mr. D, like, was talking to her, and she was just like, she was sobbing, just crying really hard, and I was like, I kind of just suspected it was just like, girl drama or something, or, another issue, not, like a death, obviously. And then we just get to the counselor, and I was like, this is about my schedule, and she was like, yeah, she's being weird the whole walk over, and then we get in the office, and she's just like, I don't know how to say this, and
Yeah.
so it was just crazy.
What hour did you have math?
I had it, oh geez, I think I had it third, I want to say, I'm pretty, yeah, when did you find out, like, what,
So, what happened with me was, actually, that morning I get to school and I still find out Brad was missing, and that's when I was like, okay, well, this could be serious, and so I went to my first hour, and then it was in my second hour, which was math also. We were taking a post-test, or a pre-test, and so that year I decided that, I was like, I don't want to get in trouble with phones and tests, so I put my phone on silent, so I had no idea when someone would text me.
oh,
And so I was taking my test, and then one of the counselors, Mr. Stout, comes in, and he's like, I need David Nielsen, I need to come with me. And so I left my stuff there, and I went to go down to the counselors, and I thought it was just about a paper I didn't sign, like for the computer.
yeah, I thought it was something like that, or,
Yeah.
school, because I was just talking to her about, like, the schedule.
And then the moment I realized that something was up when we stopped by another classroom and got out another one of Brad's friends. And I was like, well, this is weird. Why are we both out? And why do we both know Brad with all that happened last night? And so then we go down to the counselor's office. He closes his door, and then he asks us if we knew Brad Vaughn. He said...
Oh, yeah, both of you at the same time.
Yeah.
I remember him telling me about that.
Yeah, like word for word, he said, were you guys friends with Bradley Vaughn? And that's when I was like, uh-oh, that's when my stomach dropped, and I just realized that something was wrong. And that's when he told me what had happened, and I was completely thrown into shock.
Yeah.
And just, like, I put my head down and just started crying, and looked over at the other friend of Brad's, and they had started to tear up, and that's when he asked if we wanted to keep going through school, and I was like, well, I think I need to go back to my classes. And so Reese was actually in my math class, and he knew Brad, and he had known what was going on. And so I was walking back to the class to get my stuff because I left it there, and Reese had it and gave it to me, and he was like, whoa, what was that all about? And I was like, nothing, it's nothing. And so...
That same thing for me, except with another friend. I don't think he'd care. Josh, I'm not going to use last names. I just went back to math, and he was like, what was that about? And I just didn't say anything.
But actually walking down that hallway, he kept bugging me, so I looked at him and I told him, I was like, Brad's no longer with us. Mm-hmm. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, he's gone. And so then his facial expression after that was something you'll never forget. Mm-hmm. But we both went to our classes, and I had chemistry next, and I just sat there. Like, I just looked at the walls.
Yeah, I made it through my day in class, barely. And it just sucked because I had like a big day that day because afterward I had cross country, which, I obviously was not I just wasn't emotionally there. And then there was like this like shoe sale for cross country to get shoes. And like, I just went over there like to get shoes, and it's just, there was just like a big day, and I was like, oh, are you kidding me?
Yeah, but after science, it was my off hour with Reese, and we both decided that we needed to inform another one of Brad's friends what had happened. And so we saw them down at the table in the cafeteria doing homework, and so we told them that they needed to come with us. And so we got in my car and we were driving, and that's when we told them, when we were leaving the lot, I look at him, I'm like, Brad is no longer with us. Brad has passed away, and they said, you're joking, this isn't true. And
I did get a lot of that, and that
Yeah.
destroyed me. I was like, no, I wish I was yeah.
And then they said, you're joking, and I said, no, I'm not, and they said, you're joking again, and then that's when I broke down into tears and just said, I'm not joking. That's when they realized that I wasn't joking. And then after that, we all just decided we can't go back to school, and so we just went and stayed at Reese's and waited for other ones, Brad's friends, to show up who knew what was going on for, support.
Yeah, yeah, for me, I got through the day, and it sucked because I had web design with Brad, and that was at the end of the day. I think that was second to last class. So, first of all, I'll talk about lunch. Mark, he got called down, and so pretty much we got to lunch. I was like, hey Mark, did you hear about it? And he's like, yeah. And Austin was with us, and he's just he's like, what happened? I just pretty much and dude was just Brad killed himself, and it was just crazy. And we went to Clement, and we climbed on that middle building, and Austin didn't. He just didn't want to. He just kind of sat there. But Mark and I just pretty much just talked it over the whole lunch and stuff. It was just when I found out, it was really crazy because my counselor was like, I don't know how to say this, but she said I didn't even know it was a suicide for a day. I knew it was a day because I called you about it. I came out of psychology. I was just I can't do it. I just need to, walk around. I just can't be in a class right now or sit in a desk. So I called you and to see if you were okay and just see what you knew about it. And you just pretty much were it was a suicide. And I was like, oh, so. And then
I remember that phone call.
Yeah, it was big phone call. And so then but when I found out she's pretty much your friend Brad Vaughn died unexpectedly last night.
Yeah, that's what they sent to me too.
And I just I pretty much I didn't I went into shock, and my whole body completely broke down. I didn't burst into tears or anything, and pretty much they're here, you should call a parent just to let him know what happened. And pretty much my dad or she's one of Ben's close friends died unexpectedly last night, Brad Vaughn. And pretty much my dad just he gave me she gave me the phone. My dad's just hey, is this Brad? And I hadn't really said anything. I was just nodding, and I pretty much just lost it when my dad was is this? My dad was is this? Brad, I know, Brad, I'm giving rides, and I just pretty much was yes, and that's when I lost it and cried, and it was just crazy. And then just pretty much there were and then pretty much at the end of the day, when I would after school I was walking, and another one of Brad's fairly close friends, not as close anymore, but they were really close freshman year and stuff, and I was I was Brad, I have some hard news to tell you, and I'm not kidding about it at all. And she's I was Brad, died and committed suicide, and she same thing that I knew. She thought I was joking. I was I'm completely serious. I'm not at all. And
who were you saying this to?
I was saying it to Brittany. She wasn't you. She wasn't in the group, but she was.
I know who you're talking about.
And she just wasn't buying it or whatever, and she wasn't buying it to the point where she was like checking Facebook about it. And I think at that point you posted a status or something, you said something about it, and then she bought it, and then she was just pretty much like she was in shock more than anything, because she was just like, she pretty much was like, are you okay? And I was, I was like, not really, it was obviously, and then we kind of like went our separate ways, and then she ended up messaging me and texting me later about it. Like, probably the hardest thing about that is just like everything like Facebook pretty much just like blew up with messages saying like, I'm like really, really sorry.
Yeah.
And one thing that really, like, I remember the day after, I don't know, the day after I was just doing some homework, and some kids, a kid I kind of knew from cross country, and another kid from the jazz band. Alright guys, sorry about that, we had to pause it really quick. But anyway, what I was saying is, that next day, well, pretty much Brad, all the time he would, like, when we would hang out the year or years before, was pretty much in jazz band, and like he would just, because Mr. O'Neill was really lax, and I wasn't playing piano all the time because there were 3 piano players sophomore year, so, and Brad had nothing better to do, and we would always just have fun hanging out in the jazz band room, just hanging out, and like, because like those, like, the kids knew, they came by when I was doing homework, that I was like really close friends with Brad, and they were like, and like all the kids like in jazz band, they were all pretty much like jerks to me and Brad, and so these kids just like walk by and they're like, hey, like I'm really sorry, and I was just like, I just didn't want to. I was just I was just working on homework, and I asked them a question about the homework. I was just don't want to talk. And then it was passing period, and pretty much the last thing I'm going to say about just that day, probably the hardest thing would be Gil. I passed him in the hall, and he just looked at me like really compassionately, and just like pretty much walked up to me, and like he just like pretty much came up and like offered me a hug and like hugged me.
Yeah.
And I just like, when he did that, I just like broke down. Like I lost it. I was just like, I just lost it, and I just like barely got through that day. So.
Yeah, that was most definitely one of the hardest days of my life. So.
Yeah, like I would probably say, like just kind of moving on to the next point, I would probably say like the hardest day, like hardest experiences in my life were like they're both pretty equally hard. Was Brad's viewing.
Oh yeah,
that was like crazy. Didn't you leave just because it was just like I think you left a little early. You just needed to.
I don't know what exactly happened. I didn't leave early because emotionally I couldn't take it, but that was just the hardest thing I've ever seen in my life because
your friend just
you see everyone knows like what you see in there, and the person you see in there isn't the person you knew before.
It's just not the same.
It's not the same person, and when you're in there and you just all your friends are around you and they're just you're all feeling the same thing, and as like looking back, like everyone was crying, and I was like trying to keep it in as best as I could. I wanted to be able to like try and hold. It sounds weird, but hold back my emotions so I could help others.
Yeah, because
I wanted to try and like stay strong through it and not show too much emotion. And the only time I broke down during that was for a few seconds when I left the viewing room and I walked into the lobby area, and Brad's mom was there, and she was like, "It looks like you need a hug," and I just
Brad's mom and dad hugged me, and I just lost it at that point because it was just like pretty much like when I showed up there and I just saw just like Brad there and just everyone we knew just like crying. Like I was crying like the whole thing. I just like lost it the whole, like the whole viewing. I was just pretty much like sobbing the whole time. Like I was still there for everyone. Like I was holding Andrea's hand, and like I was like like holding. Like I was just like with Kyle and everything. I was just making sure it was okay, and I was just like bawling pretty much the whole time. You know, like you remember, I came up to you and talked to you briefly, and it was just crazy. And I was the only time I pretty much wasn't bawling. When I did, like they were pretty much at the end. They had things like all your best memories of Brad, and pretty much I was sobbing pretty much right up to that, and they're like pretty much at the end like anyone else, and Andrea like looked at me and she's like, if you did talk, it would be like that would be nice, and I was like, yeah, I will if I can keep my cool. So I pretty much pulled myself together, and I pretty much just like went up there and just like talked about how like just because like freshman year, like when I came here, like I knew no one, like pretty much like you and like Brad specifically, and then I like started hanging out with you later, like, but Brad was like pretty much like my only friend like freshman year, because like we would go to the library every day, like 'cause my dad was always late picking me up, or I'd go to Brad's house, and like we would like hang out every day, like we were like crazy close freshman and sophomore year, and then like I just had a busy summer, I couldn't spend as much time with you guys, but it was just like it was just crazy. I don't know. Okay, so I just talked about how like Brad was such a great friend, and he was just always there and stuff, and then that, and probably the hardest moment was just like when all 6 of us, you, me, Andy, Reese, Kyle, and who was the last person?
Was there 6 of us?
Yeah, so did
So
I
it was
say
like you, me, Reese, Andy, Kyle, and Jimmy.
Okay, yeah. Like all of us being the pallbearers, the hardest, like the service went fairly well. I kept my cool for that. The thing that I like, probably the hardest like moment in my life so far was after after the funeral, and all of us, like wheeled the casket back, and we went out and we like pretty much picked up the casket and put it in the car, like, and then like all of us were just like bawling, and we all like hugged it up. It was just like, it was just crazy.
Yeah. So, it was hard.
Yeah.
But,
Sure. So kind of just like next subject of this, what have you changed since, or how did this affect you, in the long term up to now?
So I'll start off from the beginning and go through my emotion cycle of what happened. After that happened, it killed me completely, and I kind of the way I look at it, I feel like I went into a little ball because of I didn't act how I did before, and before that happened, I'd always find myself just smiling, just cause, and then after that, I never felt like I was smiling, and that went on for several months, and I'd actually a lot of times I find myself as I'm trying to sleep, it'd come to my head and I'd just cry.
Yeah.
And I ended up crying myself to sleep, and that lasted for a few months, and then it slowly got worse until, I want to say 6 months after. And then it's hard to tell what what came after that, because I was depressed for a while, and I wasn't myself for a long time. I consider myself only being back to, normal, somewhat normal from what happened, maybe within this school year. Because it's such a traumatic event that it changes everything. I think it's made me a stronger person, and it's changed how I see a lot of things.
Yeah.
A lot of things. Going through that whole depression cycle, it changes how I've looked at a lot of things. Just an example is gay marriage.
Uh-huh.
Just because before I don't know if I'd care much for it, but now that I look at it, if someone isn't happy because they can't marry someone they love, it's I look at that different. It's because that's happiness there, and people need happiness.
Yeah, for me, I didn't show it. After that, I didn't show it too much. Mainly, I just I wasn't okay by any means, but I was able to like get through school, and like anyone that ever needed help about it, I was just like, I'm completely there for you. It's just, yeah, it definitely had a huge impact on my life. And it just sucks because I'm not going to use names or anything, but there was like kind of another kind of like suicide scare, like a few months after it, and it just kind of like completely like relapsed everything, like all the progression I had gotten, just like I was just like destroyed that night, and that was another like with my luck, it was just another day where it was like I was just with like my dad the whole day, and it was like, and then I ended up being with family all day, and I just like was not good at all that whole day, and I just it really changed me, and I just had such a huge effect on my life, and just all the stuff whenever we go back like to Brad's house, like for like just kind of get-togethers, or like Brad's birthday and stuff. Brad's birthday was another really hard day for me, but I found it like some people at the party, like they like I just really had issues, like I just was not okay at his house the whole time. Like everyone handles it different. Like a lot of people like just like made themselves like just be happy, even though it's really hard just with the family stuff, and I just couldn't do it. I pretty much just hung out in the corner and just didn't really talk to anyone. I talked to a few people, but it wasn't really.
And then something I'm curious about is, are there experiences you've had like since that has happened that has triggered the emotions but wasn't directly related to Brad?
Yeah. Like, are you talking like suicide related stuff, or
well, just like anything? Like, for example, a few months ago when I get really emotional with this stuff when it involves my brother, just because. Like, a lot of people know Brad and I called each other brothers, and that was because when Matt was on his mission, he was like my brother, because he reminded me a lot about Matt, and so that, like, Matt, when he's involved with it shows, like, I get super emotional. Like, a couple months ago, when Matt was down here from his mission and from school, and he was still trying to get back into the whole life thing, we were down in my room, and we were sitting there, and he said, sometimes I feel like this, and he went on my computer, and he went on Paint, and he drew the world, and then he drew a dot, and I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I feel like that if I went missing, and just like ended up in a ditch somewhere, or like just vanished off the earth, no one would care. And he was sitting on my bed when he said this, and I was sitting in the chair facing the computer, and that's when I broke down, just sat there, and then I looked at him, and I was like this is emotional talking about it.
Yeah, I completely get you. It's all good.
And I said I would care, because when everything was hard going through, I knew that when you come back, I'll be happy again.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't know how it helped. Kyle helped a ton with the whole Brad thing. I probably wouldn't have gotten through it. I would, Kyle's my best friend now, and it's that's what made us best friends, because we were just so there for each other after all that. We just both, we were all on the same page with it, and we just, he's the one that helped me through it. If it wasn't for Kyle, I don't know what I'd. It's just crazy. So, I don't know, there's still not a day that goes by where I don't think about Brad. For sure. It's just, it was so crazy,
Most definitely, the hardest thing I've ever gone through.
Yeah, there's nothing that's even come close. It's just, you know, it's like you just never you never think about that stuff.
Yeah.
Like we kind of do now because we've been through it, but like I don't know about you, like whenever like before the whole Brad thing, like I would always think like, you know, like what would it be like if like a friend like did pass, or like, you know, like, and I expected it would be bad, but it's like so much crazier, like, because when you're hanging out with them, you don't expect like, oh, you know, this is like the last day.
Yeah, like the last time I ever talked to him, I remember exactly what he said last to me, and like I would have never expected that being the last time I'd ever see him.
Yeah. Like, do you feel comfortable saying it? If you don't, I completely understand.
I don't know, just because.
And if you
like, I don't want to really like. Just because it
just helps you, just because it's.
Well, it's more of like I don't. I have to explain to you like off camera.
Yeah, it's completely fine. I understand. I mean, this is so we can talk about that later. But yeah, there's like I don't remember specifically. I am really glad though that Brad and I's like last conversation, like it was like we left each other getting along.
Yeah.
Really cool. And it does suck because I do know there was people that didn't leave Brad getting along with him.
Yeah, and that if I was in a situation like that, I would have just completely like died inside.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it was just like, yeah, everything with that experience was crazy. It's just, I don't know. I think, is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
I think that's about it.
Alright, well, yeah, I think that was definitely a good thing. Like, I mean, there was obviously stuff that was really hard to talk about. But.
Yeah, but talking, like, I've talked about it a lot with people, and so that's why, there's only, like, key spots you hit that I get emotional about.
Yeah.
But I've just talked about it so much with people.
Yeah, same here. For me, like, yeah, like, I could pretty much, you know, talk about this, like, just in general. Like, it's still, like, hard to talk about, but you've just gotten used to it. But there's just things like, you know, like the viewing and like stuff like that, where it's just like it was really hard to talk about, or like with your brother.
It's just like I mainly just get emotional when my brother gets involved with it.
Yeah, I completely get you. So, but if it wasn't for Brad, like Brad definitely was the huge inspiration behind this project for me, and it's just, you know, that's why I'm glad people are willing to interview about it, because I just really want this project to show how much, like, it really affects everyone around you, like how much a death really affects everyone,
like
even
people
if you living don't think it does.
Yeah, like people who are thinking that it's the only like way out, and they think it just ends all the pain. Like, it really doesn't. All it does is it passes the pain on the others. It passes pain on the others, and it's like multiplied pain, like like by 10 and 100, like the pain someone feels like when they feel like they need to will go away, but the pain of after someone does commit suicide never leaves. It's always there.
Like in my opinion, like I think just Brad, he just got caught up in the moment, you know, on the walk. Like, you know, he had all of his own thoughts, and I think Brad, he didn't have like the greatest coping skills, you know, like it was hard for him to like look ahead. I just remember, you know, there's just times where like he would get frustrated or something.
He was really impulsive.
Yeah, for sure, and I just don't think that helped him out. Like I think at that point in time when he was thinking it, I just don't think he had any, you know, I just didn't think he saw any other way. I don't think he wanted to by any means. It was just his only option. So, but thank you so much for doing the interview, because you're definitely like an important. Yeah, thank you, because you're definitely like an important person to talk to about it. Because you were like me, you know, like at slightly different times. Like Brad was always, you know, definitely like a big friend of mine.
And like You, Brad, and I had like some pretty fun times.
Yeah, like spending the night at Brad's house for sure. Like it was, like there were definitely some great times. It was just hilarious. Like we hung out a lot, and it was it was just really relaxing and everything. So just Brad was like a really great friend. I'm just really glad you were willing to interview about it, because like it's just it's because like we were like in the immediate effect of it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, thank you again for the interview.
Yeah.
Great.